Hello, I'm Tracy Grimshaw. Welcome to A Current Affair. 5 years ago, Shelly Walsh lost everything when her father murdered her mother and both of her children. Incredibly, she is rebuilding her life as she tries to save others from the unbearable nightmare she's been through.
People ask me all the time, how do you feel about him? And it literally depends on the day you ask me. Like, sometimes I still love him, sometimes I hate him. Sometimes I feel sorry for him, sometimes I'm completely indifferent, sometimes I'm angry. To look at him, that's my father. But then to look at him, that's also the person that murdered my mum and my children and tried to murder me.
It's been 5 years, but Shelly Walsh is still staring down her demons. Do you still shoulder some of the blame, Shelly?
I think I do.
Why?
Well, that was my mum, but more so my babies. It was my job to protect them and I wasn't there.
After her shift as a police officer, Shelly went to pick up her kids from her parents' house. She discovered the unthinkable. Her mother and her 2 young children had been murdered. Tonight, she speaks about confronting the man responsible, her father. Why did you go back and see him?
This is going to sound bizarre, but I actually wanted to forgive him as much as I could.
Plus how she's picked up the pieces of her shattered life with the help of new love.
And it's not something I thought I would find again.
Shelly, nice to see you. 4 years since we last talked. How are you doing?
I am doing a lot better. Obviously there's still bad days. I don't know how to say that any better, but they're far and few between in comparison to where we were last time. I remember trying to ring Mum. It was about 7:30 in the morning. And I remember looking at the clock and going, yep, they should all be awake now.
7-year-old Kevin and 5-year-old Jamie often stayed at their grandparents' house while their mum was at work. But on the 30th of June 2008, Shelly Walsh returned to her parents' Cowra home to find her father all alone.
There was just something different about his voice, like it wasn't quite my dad.
69-year-old John Walsh had just committed multiple murder. He bludgeoned his wife Jean with a hammer and stabbed her with a knife, beat his grandson to death with a blunt object, and drowned his granddaughter in the bath.
Just as you go in the front door, the first door on the right is Mum and Dad's bedroom. I noticed that the latch was on from the outside. And I remember thinking, well, Mum can't lock herself in the room if she's inside the room. So I unlatched it and opened it and saw Mum on the floor. But I remember saying to Dad, the first thing I said to him was like, did I say what I think I've just seen? And then he started going, oh, do you want a cup of tea? Just right back to business. And as we go into the living room, he picks up this axe off the table. And that's when I noticed that the kids' school uniforms are still there. As he's walked up towards the bedrooms, I've kept going straight up to the kids' room. Going, if they're not at school, they've got to be in here. As soon as I opened the door, first thing I saw was Jamie. And I knew when I looked at her that she wasn't alive. Then I heard his footsteps behind me. I've turned around and he's just standing there looking at me, like not moving, just watching me. And he's holding the axe.
Could you see Kevin?
On the bed Jamie was on, there was a rolled up blanket next to her. I just thought it was a bunched up quilt. I found out later on that Kevin was in there. And I remember leaning down and putting my hand on Jamie's cheek to see if like she was still warm, because then maybe I could bring her back. She was cold. And it was while I was doing that he's come in with the axe and hit me. He goes, I'm doing this because I love you. I'm in for the second.
Shelly was struck on the head twice with the axe, but managed to fight off her father and run for help. John Walsh escaped and was caught 6 hours later. He was jailed for life.
Can't get my mum back and I can't get my kids back. But everything else in my life I can get back and will get back, and the more I do, the less he has. Because if I give in to it and let it bait me, he wins. And he's taken enough.
You have changed your life quite a lot since I last spoke with you. You were thinking about going back to work in the police force when we last spoke, and now you've swapped operational work for teaching here at the academy. Why did you do that?
I'm what we call restricted duties, which means I can't wear appointments, like handcuffs, gun, all that sort of stuff, which obviously you need to wear if you're going to go out and work at the street. For me, it's a mental thing. I just need to know that my reactions to certain jobs that we're exposed to would be appropriate. I'm not 100% confident that I'm there, and until I am, I'm not going to risk myself or anyone I work with or anyone in the public. It came down to, if I can't do that, what is the most useful thing I can do and still contribute to the police? And it's here, teaching at the academy. At the beginning...
What triggers a bad day now?
It could just be like seeing someone that looks like a family member. I mean, at the moment I'm watching the parents of, who had children who were friends with mine, watching them become teenagers, which is where Kevin would be in February. Kevin would be in high school, so I've watched all his mates start high school, stuff like that.
I think it's quite brave of you to stay in touch. Has that been something you've had to work on doing?
Because at the beginning it was something that just kind of happens, and now it's a conscious thing, because I don't know how to explain it, it keeps me up to date with where they would be now. I'm never going to find out how they actually would have, or who they would have become. I wouldn't even know what they would look like now. It just brings me a little bit closer to them, keeps me in touch with where they would be now.
In the years that have passed, Shelly has seen her father in jail twice. The first visit was soon after he was locked away in 2009. The second, a 2-hour meeting just a few months ago.
And all I needed was 30 seconds. Like, do you know why? No, okay, see you. But once you're in there, you're in there. And he was quite chatty about anything and everything except the events of that day. He didn't want to talk about that day.
When you asked him, what did he say?
He just shrugged his shoulders and said, I don't know why myself. And that was it. That was his answer.
Did he apologise to you for what he did to you?
No.
Did he ever ask you how you are?
He did ask how I am. But I have chosen to give him as little information as possible about where I'm at now. I think he's lost the right to know.
If he'd apologised to you, what effect would that have had?
It's not something I've had to think about because he never has. And if he ever did, I have no idea how that would feel. It wouldn't change anything. I'd still walk out and they're still gone and he's still in jail and I'm still here.
Then why did you go back and see him?
I wanted to let him know, sit in front of him, look him in the eye and let him know I'm fine. You didn't win, I'm fine. This is going to sound bizarre, but I actually wanted to forgive him as much as I could.
Why?
It makes it his burden to carry, not mine.
Do you think he carries a burden?
No one's going to know that but him.
Will you go back?
No. At the end, the last thing he said to me was, I hope I see you again, but I also hope I don't. And the last thing I said to him was, you won't see me again.
Today, Shelly is using the tragedy for good. As a domestic violence survivor, she regularly gives talks about her experience to police trainees and the public, alerting them to the warning signs of abuse and providing support to other victims. If she can save one person from the fate of her mother and children, it's worth it.
I've actually realised, looking back, that I was actually growing up with domestic violence and I never realised. Half hour, I opened the floor to them. I was brought up to believe my dad was always right. Do not question him because just don't suggest he's less than perfect. Whatever we did was never good enough. I'd bring home an exam with 98% on it and his comment would be, where's the other 2%? Just things like that all the time. I watched him cut my mum off from family members. I watched him kick my youngest brother out of the home when he was 15. And
why?
He was the only one that called Dad called him on it. People keep coming back to that whole thing, like if you're not getting hit or if you're not being sexually abused, it's not violence. And domestic violence is a hell of a lot more than that. And a lot of people are actually out there in these kind of relationships and they probably don't even know. That's what I'm trying to change.
The Cowra house was demolished, and with it the physical reminder, at least, of Shelly's nightmare. These days, home is 200 kilometres away in the bustling city of Goulburn.
Hello, darlings.
And family is 2 dogs and the woman who's helped Shelly slowly rebuild her life, her partner Denise.
How much has she meant to you and her support through this?
Along with the police, she's right up there for making a difference. I mean, at the time when we met, I was still going to court. The court appearances hadn't finished yet. Right from the word dot, she's come along on the journey with me. And when I fall down, go boom, she picks me up. And I just feel so safe and secure. Now I'm going to cry.
Oh, I didn't mean to.
No, it's good tears. She makes me happy. And it's not something I thought I would find again.
You deserve to be happy.
Thank you.
You've had more than your share of unhappiness. Have you ever thought about having more kids, Shell?
I have thought about it. A lot of people have actually asked about it. And I don't think I can. I would be so overprotective and wrap them in cotton wool and just not let them have experiences because I call it trauma world in my brain. Like, it would tell me that they're not safe unless they're with me. And I know this is going to sound dramatic. Like, I would probably quit my job to stalk my children, you know, things like that. Like, and they would just not grow up healthy. So I wouldn't do that to them. So it's probably safer not to.
And in terms of your own feelings about that day and the occasional guilt that you carry, do you believe that you'll be able to shrug that off?
I think it's going to be over time. It's not going to happen quickly, but as time progresses, those sort of issues are becoming less and less. So I think given a little bit more time, they're going to be gone. I can't tell you how much time that's going to take.
She is a smart, strong woman, and today Shelly Walsh won a New South Wales Police Commissioner's Award for the advancement of women in policing.